Hello and welcome to 4,000 and Counting, brought to you by Hurricane E-Bikes. I'm Watty, this is Mark, and today we are joined by YouTuber Odd Man Rush, aka Hayden. Hayden, welcome back to the show. Second time appearance
Welcome,
for
bud.
you.
Yeah, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
Mate, I know we were just trying to figure it out. I think we were just coming out of the pandemic last time,
Mm.
and obviously YouTube was one of the places to go to keep yourself entertained during the pandemic. That's where I came across your content, and I've been like a viewer ever since. We were just like talking off air, just like shooting the shit and catching up. How's it been? It sounds like you've got some big exciting plans in your personal life, potential move abroad. How's that come about? And tell the people.
Yeah, so I've obviously just been kind of going on the YouTube grind, as every content creator does. And yeah, so my partner who lives in Montreal, she's born and raised in Montreal. I'm planning to emigrate over there at the end of the year. We've been together almost 4 years. It's 4 years towards the end of this month, so it's now or never at this point. Like we've got to see if this works long term. So why not? I've been there obviously for like periods of time. I think the last time we did the episode, I was in Montreal at the
Yeah,
time.
you were.
Yeah, so like, go out there, see how it goes, and we'll take it from there. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff, but it's been a long time coming, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Montreal's meant to be a beautiful city as well.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Huge
absolutely.
hockey market.
Oh, the Bell Center, one of the most incredible experiences like of my life. I don't know if I mentioned it the last time we recorded an episode, but obviously like where I live in the UK, not very close to hockey rinks at all. I think the closest one's about 90 minutes away from where I am, so I don't really get to hockey rinks very often. But when I was out there, not this last year, the year before, I think it was 2021, my partner got me tickets to the home opener of
That's right.
the Habs
Yeah,
season.
that was when I was
Yeah,
talking to you last time.
yeah, and it was the Habs versus the Rangers, who are like my two teams, and it was like the most incredible experience. I've never like been to an NHL sized rink before, and like it's kind of the mecca of the hockey world, really, isn't it? Like the Bell Center, 20,000 seats, one of if not the biggest arena in the league. So to go there, and obviously it was like the first home opener since all of their like shutdowns and everything. So I think it was the first time that the arena was full in about a year, 18 months. So everyone was just so excited to be there. It was like the best vibe I've ever had at a sports game. It was brilliant.
Did they put on a show like the Las Vegas Golden Knights?
Obviously with home openers, they always have like every team has their, like little thing that they do. They did a big part like introducing each of the individual players. And I remember Carey Price I think he just announced that off season that he was like not taking to the ice that year because of off ice issues. But he was at the game, like he was there, and I think he came. They had like a red carpet on the ice, and each of the players, whether they were like the healthy scratches and like the LTIR guys,
Yeah.
they'd walk out, wave to the crowd and everything. And the ovation that Carey Price got was incredible, because like you could tell that market just adores everything that he's done. And I think especially in the NHL nowadays, it's so rare for a player to spend their entire career with a team, and not only that, be at one point potentially the undisputed best goaltender in the world during your career. So
100%.
Yeah.
like the love for Carey Price was huge. I think it was also the first game back for Jonathan Drouin, who obviously took that break for like mental health reasons, I think. So he got a big ovation as well. Like you could tell that the fans were just happy to be there and happy to support the team as well. And that's such an awesome feeling, especially like given what the world went through at the time.
Obviously, the rink's jumping. What are the bars and the restaurants and everything like around the Bell Center? What are they like, say, on game day?
So there are some like nice restaurants there. I'll be honest, they're a bit too pricey for me, or they were at the
Bit
time.
too spenny,
Yeah, a bit too pricey for me. All I remember is there was like just opposite the Bell Center, because the Bell Center is like right in the middle of downtown Montreal. Like it's super easy to get to. There's a metro station that literally like runs to the Bell Center, where it's like a 5-minute walk from the metro station, and you're like underground. And obviously game day, game night, there's thousands and thousands of fans taking the metro all in their like Habs gear, which was really cool as well. But the one thing I do remember is that they have like a McDonald's that's like right across the street from the Bell Center, but it was always closed at the end of game days. And I understand from like the staff's perspective, because could you imagine like 5,000 Habs fans wanting a Big Mac like right after the game, like
Yeah,
driving themselves into there. But like on the other hand, like what a missed opportunity there. You can make some good money from like all the Habs fans who were just like hungry for something, because arena food's overpriced as it is, you know. Why not like wait till the end of the game, or you know, if you leave early because the team plays like shit, then go and get yourself something nice to eat to make up for it, I guess.
You said you got a couple of teams. Two big things happened with both your teams. Obviously, the Rangers, they brought in Patrick Kane, and
Yes,
just as we were coming on air today, Caufield has signed a $62.8 million contract with the Montreal Canadiens. 8 years, I can't remember what you said off air, 7.85 or something.
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Matches Nick Suzuki's contract. Let's go to the Kano one first, and then we'll go to Cole. How do you feel about both of those?
I think with Patrick Kane, he was exactly what the Rangers expected. He was a guy that could put up decent numbers, but his hips were clearly not doing good. And it showed because it was announced, I think, last week that he's had hip surgery and he's meant to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, I think. So he's going to miss the start of the season, or was it 4 to 6 months, something like that. Like
4 months. He has had his hip scored, I think.
Yeah, that's it. So like he's obviously, that was a nagging issue for him. Clearly, he was still an effective player in spite of that nagging injury. But I think obviously the Kane put the Blackhawks into a bit of a hole by going, I want to go here and here only, and you're going to make it happen because I've won you 3 Stanley Cups. Like, obviously, he was their former first overall draft pick. He'd won 3 Stanley Cups. Like, he'd earned that. You know, he'd earned that right to say, I'm going here. As a Rangers fan, like, I was excited to get him, especially given that the Rangers didn't really give up a huge amount in order to make it happen. I think also with Vladimir Tarasenko coming in at the trade deadline as well, that was a good addition. I really like Tarasenko with the Rangers. I do hope they bring him back.
Savage, by the way.
Exactly. And a solid playoff guy as well. Like, he's put up decent numbers. I think I saw a stat during the playoffs that I think out of active players, he has like the top something, like he's in the top something of scorers within the last like 5 seasons or something. I can't exactly remember the stat. I don't want to like quote it wrong, but yeah, he was a really good fit with the Rangers, and I could see him coming back. Patrick Kane, I think it obviously depends on how much he's wanting. If he's wanting to obviously return to New York and New York only, and he's willing to take a pay cut, because obviously the salary cap is only going up by $1 million. Gary Bettman confirmed that a couple of days ago, which I think is ridiculous, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, I think unfortunately Kane didn't add anything. The problem is with Kane at this point, when he's not scoring, he's not an effective NHL player anymore. Or given his hip injury, like his bread and butter is putting points on the board. It always has been, but he's always, you know, had that speed. He's puck handling skills that he's incredible with the puck. When he's doing that stuff, he earns his money. When he's not, he's dreadful defensively. They obviously they put so much emphasis on reuniting him with Artemi Panarin, and that didn't really work out. Like, I feel like both of them were trying to overthink it. They're both pass first guys as opposed to shoot first. And Panarin, I love the guy, but he needs to shoot more, you know? So it was disappointing how that season went, especially given obviously the conference finals run last season. So I just want to see the Rangers win 1 championship before I die. You know, I feel like that's a luxury that quite a lot of people don't get afforded with their NHL teams, especially given some of the droughts that we've got in the league at the moment. But yeah, I hope that Tarasenko comes back to the Rangers. The Patrick Kane, it all depends on the situation, I guess. And obviously, it depends on who the head coach is that they're bringing in. Yeah, so
have they?
Yeah, because they say it's between Peter Laviolette and John Hines are kind of the 2 big names, and I'll be perfectly honest, I am not inspired by either of them. I get that Laviolette's like won a cup before. I get that he's got a long pedigree, but he won a cup in the mid-2000s. Like, it's 2023 now. Like, I get that he's earned a place in the NHL, but me personally, if they announced tomorrow that Peter Laviolette had been hired, I'd just be like, okay. Like, it doesn't get me excited as a Rangers fan. But then again, I don't know who would, you know, because the head coaching market out there isn't really hot at the moment. Like, A lot of teams. I mean, there's reports that Mike Babcock is coming back to the Blue Jackets, which, I mean, good luck there, Columbus. There's obviously like Patrick Wa's name has been mentioned. He just won the Memorial Cup with the Quebec Ramparts. But obviously his previous NHL head coaching gig didn't necessarily go too well. So there's lots of names out there. Yeah, exactly. There's lots of names out there, and there's lots of rumors. I am somebody who hates the rumor mill. I hate it when like people make like just constantly like pump out like rumors without any kind of information to support that. Yeah. If it's like, oh, Laviolette has visited New York and met with the Rangers, like Rangers organization, there's a possibility he could be a head coach. There's something there. But if it's just, oh, Laviolette's name was mentioned or John Hines' name was mentioned, let's just run with that for the next 2 weeks. I get that news is slow for a lot of the NHL teams at the moment, but come on, guys. Like, let's wait until something actually happens. But what was the other thing you mentioned? I feel like I've got off on a tangent.
We'll come back to it because I'm going to tie it back in with this now. I've got a name. Used to play in Basingstoke. Went on to coach BU. It was at BU. Actually, let's roll it back. I'll tell everyone his name first. Albie O'Connell. Okay. So his kind of coaching career started back in 2002, 2003 as assistant coach at Berkshire School. Then went to Colby College. 2 years at Niagara University. Then went as assistant coach at the Holy Cross. Then a year in Merrimack, 3 years in Northeastern.
Okay.
He then had 4 years at Harvard as assistant and 3 years at BU as assistant before becoming head coach of BU for 5 seasons.
Oh, wow.
Then, going back to what I was going to say, tied in, he spent last year as a scout in the Montreal organization.
Okay, wow, he's really risen through the ranks then. Fair play to him.
So he's there or thereabouts. And to have that tenure as a college coach, and without being a dick, fuck Peter Laviolette, fuck Mike Babcock. These guys have had their turn.
Yep.
We don't need them anymore.
Agreed.
See ya, bye.
Yeah.
You made your dough. You've had your career. You've had your chance to get your cups. Let's get Albie in. Albie's probably, how old is he? But someone like that, someone new, someone exciting. Tampa had to take a chance on John Cooper.
Yep.
Didn't do them any harm.
Exactly. And I feel like the two names that keep getting mentioned is like, oh, we'd love to find our Mike Sullivan or our John Cooper, right? Yeah. Mike Sullivan used to be
47.
Yeah. Like Mike Sullivan used to be an assistant with the New York Rangers, then got hired for the Penguins job. It's done pretty well.
Yeah.
Then you've also got John Cooper who came through. Isn't he the only head coach to win the Stanley Cup, the AHL Championship, and the ECHL Championship? Am I like talking out my ass at the moment?
He won a Junior A Championship as well. I think.
Yeah, like he's won at every single level that he's coached at, right? So obviously he's a new coach coming from the AHL. You're like, oh, we don't know how this is going to go. I feel like that's why a lot of people are mentioning Chris Knoblauch's name, because obviously he's the Hartford Wolfpack head coach. He took some games for the Rangers during the pandemic season because of like COVID stuff. I think was it Gallant, or I think it was Gallant was out because of COVID or something like that. Yeah, because I can't remember whether it was Gallant or David Quinn, because David Quinn, that tenure just like has been erased from my mind because of the rebuild and everything. Like those were not very fun days. They were fun, but also they weren't fun. And so I feel like Chris Knoblauch, he's obviously known to the organization. He's done a good job with the Hartford Wolfpack. And one of the big criticisms of the Rangers is they don't develop their prospects. Why not have a guy who knows these prospects already, bring them in? Because you've got a former first and second overall draft pick. I feel like the criticism towards them is unfair in some senses, but entirely valid in others. Like, you've got two guys that clearly haven't taken the next step. They need to if they want to kind of earn their pay. But at the same time, they have been playing third-line minutes for the majority of their careers so far. They both got drafted to teams who had Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, Artemi Panarin. Yeah. Like, it's not as if they went to
be number one dog on the team will come, but
exactly. And they're both like 21 and 22.
Yeah, they're babies. Yeah,
like they're in their early 20s. And I will say, Capo Caco, he has turned into an absolute beast of a forward. Like the last couple of seasons, you can see the difference in just how he uses his body and his physicality. It is so difficult to get the puck off him now. All he needs to do is just fine-tune that offensive side of his game. He can pass very well, but if he gets that shot behind him, he will be like a 70, 80 point guy in the NHL, no problem.
100%.
And the big criticism of Alexei Lafreniere, he needs a skating coach. He just needs to work on his skating. He's got the IQ, he's got the shot, he's got the passing. He just needs to get that speed underneath him, and both of them will be flying. But a guy like Chris Knobloch will know that stuff. Because his job is to his job is to develop these prospects and to keep the aging guys going for a few more years before they decide to call it a day and keep them effective players. And it's worked for Mike Sullivan. It's worked for John Cooper. Yeah, it's not guaranteed that the Rangers will win a Stanley Cup with Chris Knobloch, but the last time they won was with Mike Keenan, and he wasn't exactly the best choice for the time either. No. So, and he lasted that season, then he was gone. So sometimes you need that lightning in a bottle, and you get your name etched on the cup for the rest of time. So,
okay, what about Cole Caufield then? Obviously, you're going to be living there. He's going to be.
That's a hell of a signing. That is a hell of a signing. Yeah, because what was it? 8 years, did you say?
8-year deal, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's basically going to do him for the rest of his 20s. So that's a solid deal. And he got injured midway through last season, didn't he? He was shut down.
A horrific injury, yeah.
Yeah. So
he ended up with like 43 points in 46 games, I believe.
That's it,
yeah.
Exactly. And I don't expect that to stop anytime soon. Cole Caufield seems like the type of guy who he's cocky, but he's not arrogant. You know, he's got that swagger to him and the way that he plays, that he knows what he's capable of, and he just goes out.
Juniors alone, mate. Like,
exactly.
When he was announcing himself on the scene, you were like, "This guy's a motherfucker." Like,
yeah, he just goes in, rips points, gets the job done, has a smile on his face the entire time. He's the type of player that the other, like, your opposing teams love him because they wish they had him. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you make of Slavkovsky then? Do you think it was a year too soon for him to get the shout with the Habs?
I don't think so. I think it was. I feel like because we had Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, like one after the other, everyone expects the first overall draft pick to be a point-a-game guy.
Sidney Crosby straight off the bat.
Exactly.
100 points, 100 pims.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've got to put some stock in the fact that a lot of these guys that came through and joined the NHL these last couple of seasons, a lot of them missed time because of the pandemic. Like the OHL didn't play an entire season of play because of it, and the OHL is the biggest feeder of talent for the NHL. So yes, obviously you can make the argument, but there are other guys that are lighting it up and they miss time. Sure, that's a fair argument, but progress isn't linear. Like everybody doesn't develop at the exact same time. And I would make the argument, would you rather have one amazing season and then fall off the cliff, or would you rather have 10 solid seasons? You know, like at the end of the day, these guys are human beings. They have lives, they have careers, they have to focus on their own health, mental health, physical health, well-being, everything like that. So yes, I get that they're getting paid millions of dollars in order to do their job, but all it takes is a couple of mistakes and then they're not. So it comes and goes just as quickly, you know?
Yeah, it really does. I think he's going to be fine. He's got enough solid player. He's got enough upside. I think he's going to pan out, and having Martin St. Louis there is going to be a big reason why that happens.
Yeah.
Big fan of St. Louis. Yeah.
Still just pulling goalies' pants down and like shootouts in the coaching tracksuit, eh? He's just out there ripping goalies' hearts out on like the guys that, come on, dude, it's 9:30. You just fucking forehand, backhand through the legs, backhand shelf. In your tracksuit, like what's going on?
He has that like Rod Brindamore sense to him that I feel like if either of those two guys put on the gear, they could still be a solid NHLer today. Yeah. And you know, and you know that those two guys wouldn't ask the players to do any drills that they could do themselves and probably destroy the rest of the team in. So, and it comes with that recent former player mentality, doesn't it? You know, like St. Louis didn't really have a prestigious coaching career before he got the job with the Habs.
Coaching his boy, wasn't he?
Exactly, yeah. It was like his kids' team or something like that. So he hadn't won a professional championship or anything like that. Like he hadn't coached AHL, ECHL. But you can tell with a guy like that, people want to follow him because he's a leader.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all you need as a coach, especially with a young group of guys with nothing to prove, really.
Yeah, he showed just throughout his tenacity getting into the NHL, Calgary, and then going to Tampa and end up winning the cup and end up just being that franchise player.
Yeah,
like,
he's literally
do you know what I mean?
He's the definition of exceeding expectations. Everybody expected him. He was too small for the NHL. Cole Caulfield was probably told the same as well, you know. And now he's earning. Now he's earning $8 million a year, you know.
Imagine St. Louis in this game now when no one can clobber you. And loads more smaller guys like him. He'd fucking running riot because the legs on the man, like the speed, the agility. Like his quads were like this, man.
I was going to ask whether you'd seen that picture. His quads are a thing of beauty, aren't they?
He's got quads like a cyclist.
Yeah,
he's got like a velodrome cyclist quads on him, and I mean, when you're going to be smaller than everyone else, you got to be strong. And if you're going to be strong, you got to have big legs, and he most certainly ticks that box. Let's move away from the NHL for a second and go more towards the YouTube stuff. What's the new content been saying? How have you been enjoying? Like, still plodding along, doing these videos? You've never waned from putting them out. Always had a pretty solid schedule.
Yeah, so I've been doing like a quote unquote proper job since end of January. So I've obviously had to kind of manage that on top of YouTube, but it was never a case of like I wanted to quit YouTube altogether. It's more I was getting so like, I need this to work. And then when it wasn't quite working out the way that I wanted to, like really beating myself up about it. So I was like, I need to find something else and have this more as like a side hustle, because I feel like I will find the love for it again. And lo and behold, that's worked. You know, like I feel like now that I don't know if I mentioned it, but I work 3 days on, 12-hour night shifts, 3 days off. So I have a good chunk of time in between each of my sets of shifts to actually like work on a video. So when I'm not at work, I'm working on a video. When I'm not working on a video, I'm working. So it's the creative outlet that I need. And I think maybe it's a case of less is more, because I'm now putting out like a video every week, a video every like 10 days, something like that. And they seem to be doing just as well as before. And maybe it was a case of before I was kind of overthinking it a little bit or kind of doubting what I'm doing. But I feel like now I'm kind of reinvigorated with the creative process, because I've obviously been doing it for a couple of years. Like I've been doing it since we last spoke, and even for a year and a half, 2 years before that as well. So it's kind of, I know what I'm doing in terms of the content that I'm creating and my style. It's just a case of finding that motivation to keep doing it, even when things get slightly difficult. And that's the thing about YouTube. Everyone sees like the big content creators, the Mr. Beasts with the hundreds of millions of views. For every one of them, there's 10 million that either don't make it or they produce like, you know, a modest following online. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've always said to people, like, I've never wanted to be like huge, biggest YouTuber ever. I mean, obviously the likelihood of that happening is very small, but I've never wanted like the fame and the attention that comes with it. I enjoy the stories that I tell, and that's why I do it.
Yeah, I want to get big enough so I can punch fuck out of some of these little YouTube knobs in a boxing ring.
Yeah, do it.
I want to get like 10k subs just so I can go give a YouTuber a hiding. Like I hadn't thought of that now. Like just when you was talking of numbers, I was like, that's how many. I want enough to be relevant enough to jump in the ring with one of those.
You're going to go in with Jake Paul? Is that the name? Is that the ambition?
Enough, mate. Nowhere near good enough. Would be nowhere near good enough to fight Jake Paul. I mean, I would fight him, but I'd be nowhere near good enough.
See, like I love that obviously YouTuber boxing has become a huge thing over the last couple of years, man. And like
crazy.
It's not really something that I follow too closely, but I will give credit to the YouTubers. Like everyone discounts them because they're YouTubers. Yeah, but that also means that they might have the ability to train as much as they would like and take the time to hone the craft. Like, and the fact that, you know, there are YouTube boxers out there that are competing against, you know, either professionals or former professionals, and they're holding their own, if not like winning. Yes, they're YouTuber boxers, but you could also make the argument they're just boxers now who also happen to be YouTubers.
Yeah,
you know,
once
and that's fine.
2, 3, 4 years into this, you can't just keep calling them fucking YouTubers anymore. Especially a guy like Jake Paul, who
he's committed a lot of time.
What his training camps are relentless, and the people he's training with and the people he's sparring, these are all professional people. He's not sparring like a couple of lads from down the park. He's not got some dickhead to try to coach him. He has got world championship level coaches coaching him. The training's there, the appetite's there, And also, it's not just the fact that they're going in and fighting. A lot of these boys have made their own promotions. They're now hosting fights. They're getting paid at both ends. They're getting paid on the ticket sales. They're getting paid for the fucking sponsors because they own it and it's their thing. And then they're getting paid from YouTube and they're getting paid from everyone. They
also make the content.
Yeah, like,
yeah,
you got to take your hat off. But again, going back to like the modest kind of following, there is enough room in this game for plenty of content creators. Who would you say are some of the best hockey YouTube creators? Obviously, we're quite new to this, so might not be as well versed in who else is out there.
That's a good question, because I'll be perfectly honest, I don't really watch many YouTube hockey creators. I know of some of them, but it was more recently. I have not watched any. Obviously, I could go with the safe answers, like, you know, the hockey guy. He's been doing it for as long as YouTube has been a thing, and there's a reason for it. He is, whenever like there's a particular thing that, whenever I don't really watch so much of his, like, you know, daily news stuff or anything like that. The guy's an absolute workhorse. Like, he pumps out so much content. Obviously, the production, like, the level of production is quite minimal, but I think that works to his strength as well.
Oh, he's a guy with like 1 million jerseys, right?
Oh yeah. He has like literally every single jersey under the sun. I don't know how he's done it, but and he's met Michael Bublé, because obviously Michael Bublé's like owns part of the Vancouver Giants, I believe, as well. Right. Like he's like had him around his house, which I think is really chill because Bublé's a fan. I think that's really awesome as well. Like just some guy who used to work in like construction or something, just talking about hockey, gets to pursue this dream. Oh, and now he's met Michael Bublé, and they're both big hockey fans, and they go and play like you know, hockey out in the backyard. You know, that's so cool. How
many videos have you done, Hayden?
How many videos? Oh, see, I privated a lot of my early ones because they're dreadful. Yes, but I think I think I must have done like 1,500, something like that. It must be getting towards that level. I could check for you now, actually, while I'm here.
The hockey guy has done 10,000 videos.
Oh yeah. The
so
guy.
He's a workhorse,
I do not know.
I'm joking.
Yeah. No, like he has got the whole YouTube like content down to a T. But also at the same time, he has it down to a T, but it never sacrifices his like quality. Yeah. Because people aren't going to watch fancy graphics and like cool effects. They're going to hear what he has to say. They want to know, oh, I'm not entirely sure about this, or I want to learn more about this. I want to hear it from this guy in particular, because over the years he's earned this reputation as a relatively unbiased source and quite an honest source. Like, he's a big Vancouver Boston fan, but he will criticize them the most because he follows them closest. But yeah, whenever there's like, you know, league news or like business related news, whether it's like, you know, salary caps or like team or arena news and stuff, he's always my go-to guy, because I'll be like, I want to know a little bit more about this because I'm kind of interested about maybe covering the topic myself. But obviously I want to make sure I present as much of the information as possible. I want to hear it from him because he can also say it in a way that makes more sense to me, as I'm not in the industry. Like, I'm not technically savvy with the sport. I'm more of like I'm more interested in the stories. So he puts it in a way that's kind of like, yeah, I get that. That makes sense to me now.
Yeah, it's just nice and easily digestible. There's another guy. I say guy, might be a girl. It's Eck, so ECK.
Yes, I have heard of Eck. They do like all the clips and stuff, don't they? Like,
yeah, I like it because they share all the fights.
It's like
simple. I'm pretty easily entertained.
He's basically the way that I've understood it is he's kind of like the NHL's version of John Boy Media.
Okay.
He kind of like takes those clips and like, you know, zooms into it and like takes like interesting situations or like has a little bit of a running commentary on it. To be fair, I haven't watched a huge amount of the videos, so I might be completely wrong on that, but that's the kind of vibe that I've got when I've seen his content, and it seems to be doing really well, so fair play to him.
What would you say to anyone that was wanting to get into the YouTube game? Obviously, we asked this question a little bit more kind of off air when we spoke last time. I think we put out 2 or 3 videos around about that time, but it just wasn't worth it time wise. But when me and Mark obviously had a chat back in March, and I think we were sat at like, I don't know, 370 subscribers or something. We was like, right, let's try and get that.
Go further, go faster, get fitter. Subscribe today. Hurricane e-bikes have a great range of bikes available on the e-bike subscription plans. The cruiser e-bikes are perfect for beach rides, long distance rides, or just everyday use. The fat bike e-bikes look great and can cope with the toughest terrain, perfect for off-road adventures. The hybrids range are perfect for about town, everyday use and leisurely rides with the family. Take your ride to the next level with the mountain bike and get ready for your next power-assisted adventure.
370 subscribers or something. We was like, right, let's try and get 1,000 subscribers by the time the season starts. Now, obviously, the season's pretty much just finished as opposed to starting. So we're ahead of the game on that. What would be your advice now that we're like kind of at that 1,000 and really looking to start this journey?
The advice that I would give is be consistent. Just do it. Like your first videos, whether you're starting a channel or you're starting a new style, they're gonna suck. That's okay. Like I have plenty of videos that I look back on, I think that was dreadful. How on earth did I ever let that be released? But all it takes is for 1 or 2 videos to pop and then you find yourself an audience. Or I think just make the content, be consistent, and make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. Now, the right reasons might vary from people to people. If the reason is I want to get big and famous, chances are you're going to be disappointed because the likelihood of that happening is very low, especially considering how many people are on YouTube and making content nowadays. But the whole reason I started my channel was because I live far away from a rink. I got into the sport and I didn't have anybody to share it with. So I started making content online because I wanted to find more like-minded hockey fans who were either in my position or who just wanted to talk about the sport, and I could learn more from them. They could learn more from me. And it's obviously snowballed. And then I've got a performing arts background. So like I love looking at like stories and like players, kind of like the Caufields, the Mighty St. Louis, the guys who weren't expected to make it, or the teams that, you know, weren't expected to do anything, but then through a strong individual play or whatever, they managed to, you know, rise above expectations, and vice versa. The guys who, you know, they were always at the top of their game and then for whatever reason they didn't make it. Or why didn't they make it? I think the biggest question I always ask is why. And I like to, my videos are all about explaining the why. Yeah. Whereas a lot of obviously, if you're doing certain topics, it's all about this is the what. This happened, which is, yeah, brilliant. I like to talk about that as well. But then also, why did that happen? Because context is so important as well. So, yeah, I think the 3 things are just make content, no matter how bad it is. You'll figure it out as you make more videos. You'll look back at them and go, this one sucked. I liked this part. Be consistent with it and do it for the right reasons.
So if you're making a video, for example, you've got your, I imagine you've got a figure in your head as to how many views you want to get per video. What I wanted to ask you was, if you've got a video at a time which is like sort of underperforming, or you're going through that patch, is there like a comfort topic or subject within hockey that you'll go straight to sort of help boost the rankings back up?
Great question.
I think, yeah, it's a brilliant question. I think my content, sometimes I have those, but once again, it varies, like at the time of the year as well. And it can still vary. So like I have 2, the longest running series I have is my Whatever Happened To series, which I've been doing for years and years and looking at different players. And sometimes, you know, I'll pick a player that I think, oh, lots of people are interested to hear about this guy, and it'll get a couple thousand. I'll do a video about Dustin Byfuglien, it gets 100K. You know, like that one did not make any sense to me.
Though,
yeah, like
really?
Did not make any sense to me whatsoever. I was sat there like, I'm expecting this to get like, you know, 5-10K views because like it's just another player.
He just left when he was a fucking dominant force and just went,
oh yeah,
I'm gonna go to the mountains and go fishing, and I'm gonna leave like 25 mil on the table. Fuck you guys, see you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
But one thing I've also noticed is with that series, a lot of Finnish players, my videos do really well. Like I did like Antti Niemi, I did Valtteri Filppula when he left to go to Geneva. Like those, like Valtteri Filppula was a guy I was like, oh, I'll make a video on him. I know where he's gone, and he played over 1,000 games in the NHL. That's a brilliant video to make. Yeah. And I had a bunch, like that one blew up. I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that. And then when he went and won gold with Team Finland, joined the Triple Gold Club, had a bunch of people come back and say like, oh, he's just joined the Triple Gold Club, you know, like so there was that like rebound effect on it as well. So I a lot of my content, because it doesn't necessarily focus on stuff that's happening right now,
It's got no
has
time
a bit
limit, has it?
has a bit more longevity, but also that might also mean that it's a bit of a slow burn. So there'll be some videos that, you know, when I release them, they got like 5-10k views at the time. I'm like, oh, like that really sucks. But then I'll go back and check it in 6 months, it'll be at 25k. And I'll be like, well, hang on a second, how did that happen?
Because you're not seeing those 200 a week, 300 a week. You're not
exactly
because you're paying attention to the analytics of what's the last 5 I've done. You're not going, oh, I wonder what I did 16 months ago.
Yeah,
and you find out it's a KHL video. That guy's now gone on and sniped a hat trick at the fucking Worlds, and all of a sudden, that video's through the roof.
Yeah, exactly.
People start searching his name into YouTube or whatever it may be.
No, exactly, and it's like that. I do find it quite interesting that there are certain players' names that I'll like look up, whether it's like Valtteri Filppula or like somebody I've done a Whatever Happened To on, and it's like, oh, they're playing in this league this year. I want to do a list of, you know, former NHLers playing overseas, because I love that element. I find it so fascinating. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, once they leave the NHL, they either don't know or don't care. So I'm like, well, let's actually talk about them, because these are guys that have played 800 games in the NHL, and it's cool that I get the chance to talk about European leagues as well, because I love the whole, like, the fact that there's kind of this continent where there's this sport that does really well and is actually quite successful on the international stage, but most North Americans don't really pay much attention to it, and understandably so, because it's on the other side of the world. But if I can find that player that they recognize and kind of bridge that gap a little bit. So I get to talk about the NHL, so they're happy, and I also get to talk about European hockey, so I'm happy, and also like widening that kind of knowledge of the sport and like different teams around the league, which I find super interesting. Like, oh, Valtteri Filppula, he went and played 1,000 games in the NHL, won the Stanley Cup with Detroit. Oh, he's now in Geneva.
Yeah,
why not?
5 points
and he's actually been the best player in that league. Yeah, he's been ripping it up in Geneva and just won a championship with them at the end of this season. So, you know, like it's. But like you were saying, Mark, it's. Sometimes I'll make Whatever Happened To, and I'll expect like, I think I could get 10k views on that, and it bombs. So, but also I could say, this guy's a kind of obscure player, or not many people are really that interested in him, I don't think, but I want to make one on him because I'm interested. I'll do like make 5k, like 5k views, and it'll get 25. You know, like there's no rhyme nor reason to it. I think also people seem to enjoy a lot more negative.
Everybody,
negative videos,
of course,
ones,
controversial.
Yeah. People either like a unlikely story, like I did one on Arber Xhekaj, the defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens. Habs fans, NHL fans love that because it was a guy that was working in Costco during the pandemic. He was undrafted, didn't get drafted anywhere that he played. He's now a decent rookie defenseman in the NHL. Like, what an incredible story! Like, that's such
as well.
Exactly. Like he is essentially keeping alive a dying breed of player, which is brilliant.
All for him.
Exactly, and everyone loves him. But at the same time, like, if I just found another player who did quite well, then everyone would be like, I don't really care. Yeah, but if I find a player
10 forward somewhere, like, it's been in the league for 4 years, it's not really very exciting.
Exactly. Whereas, like, I could make a video on Corey Perry and how he lost in 3 Stanley Cup finals in a row. Everyone loves that, you know, because it's like
Corey Perry.
Well, yeah,
true, yeah.
But you know, it's like, haha, that guy sucked. You know, like, but
isn't it crazy though? If I said to you and you didn't know any better, I said Corey Perry and Patty Maroon are going to play in at least 3 Stanley Cups each. One of them's going to walk away with 3 rings. One's going to walk away with none. You'd bet the fucking house on Corey Perry being not like the winning guy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But the big rig sat there like what you saying. He could have had 4, but that's a good one. That's interesting because that's a kick in the balls for Corey Perry. We've seen it before, like Hossa when he went to Detroit and Pittsburgh. He went to Pittsburgh, the Detroit one, and it's just like, fuck, is he going to win one? Like, and he obviously did win, but what? Because like luck.
Another example I've got of that, and it's a video I want to make at some point this offseason, is about Pete DeBoer, the coach in the NHL. He has had the worst luck when it comes to like the last few seasons. He has managed to make 4 conference finals appearances, all in the West, in the last 5 seasons with 3 different teams. made it to the finals with one of them, lost every single time.
Yeah, that's gross.
He's made it to the final four times in the last half a decade, and he hasn't taken home the cup once.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah.
And he also made the finals with New Jersey in 2012, lost there as well. Like the guy has been so close to getting over the hump.
Figure. Just touch
and,
it.
And it's the fact that it's not just once. Like he's made it consistently.
Doing
and it's not only with one team either. He made it with the Sharks, he made it with the Golden Knights, and he recently made it with Dallas. 3 teams that he's managed to take to the conference finals or even the Stanley Cup finals with San Jose in 2016 was their finals, because Nashville was 17, right? Yeah, that's it. So, like, how incredible of a coach do you have to be to take 3 different teams within half a decade to the conference finals? But then how awful does your luck have to be to not win any of them?
You kind of feel for people in that situation.
Exactly, yeah.
I've been in a couple of semis, but it's gross when you lose.
And everyone's going to call him a shit coach for that reason, when in fact he's not, because he's been making it consistently with different teams. That's just how we are as fans, aren't we? We like the negative.
Yeah. Like, if anything, that goes to show how incredible of a coach Pete DeBoer is. Yeah, he didn't have the miracle run that or he didn't get like a hot goaltender or, you know, a Conn Smythe performance from a guy that really should have been. But at the same time, like you say, 3 different teams in 5 years. First of all, 3 different teams in 5 years, that's a question mark in and of itself. But you know, with a coach like Pete DeBoer, if you hire him, he's taken you deep in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of, do you bet on the fact that this year is different, or do you assume that he's going to keep going to the conference finals, maybe a Stanley Cup finals? Because he's been to 2 cup finals since becoming a head coach, and like a decade apart as well.
It's the toughest trophy to win in sport, though. Let's have it.
There's a reason, right? Like the regular season
trophy to win it in
the regular season is literally just a competition to get your ticket to the playoffs, and then the playoffs is a completely different game.
Well, let's keep it current then. No one probably had Vegas, Florida as the NHL playoff Stanley Cup Finals 2023, but that is the case. Vegas are 1-0 up after the first game. Guys and girls, just real quick, if you're watching this, you're going to want to come back Wednesday or Thursday this week. We're bringing another former guest back. We're bringing the Golden Knight himself, Britt Lee, our boy over there from Peterborough, killing it in Vegas. He obviously had the shout out for Peterborough there from Mark. He obviously had the exceptional intro to the start of the Stanley Cup Finals. If you have not seen it, I urge you, get on YouTube, being done on here, type in Vegas Golden Knights Game 1 intro. Fucking banana lands. But yeah, I completely forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, going back to it. So that's the 2 teams that we've got there. Who did you have as kind of favourites going into the playoffs? I imagine you're rooting for the Rangers.
Yes,
but
that didn't go so well.
But were you going in confident? Was that your pick, or did you fancy anyone else?
I will be perfectly honest. I did not have any kind of predictions for this year's playoffs. I think it's also a case of like I haven't really paid a close attention to it, or as close attention as I have in previous years. Whether that's just because like life's gotten in the way or whatever. I don't know. Like Florida, obviously lowest seeded team out of any team that made it to the playoffs this year. Like that would be such a Cinderella run to go from the 8th seed. And like I want to do a video as well on, there's a particular game that was played that everybody talked about a lot once Florida clinched their finals berth, and it was a game between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Was that when it was the breakaway?
I can't remember.
And
it was in like
qualify.
Yeah, it was like mid-April this year, and the Blackhawks ended up beating the Penguins. A couple of days later, Florida took the last seed in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So because they lost, Pittsburgh missed out. I think there might have been an extra game in between then and there, but like the whole narrative is obviously that Pittsburgh lost that game. That meant that they missed the finals. It also meant that Florida made it to the playoffs. They obviously beat the best regular season team in NHL history, the Boston Bruins. They then beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, and obviously Carl Dubas has left that organization, funnily enough, now joined Pittsburgh. So there's that domino effect there. Because Florida made it through, they beat...
It's a ready written story for a guy like you.
And also not even that, I'm not even done. Like the Chicago Blackhawks, they moved up in the draft order, but they end up winning the draft lottery in the place that they're in, get Connor Bedard. So like there's like 3 or 4 different teams that this one game, and Pittsburgh, obviously, they fired all of their, like, you know, they fired Hextall and Brian Burke and have moved them out of the organization. They're having a big shake-up in the organization and hired Dubas. So there's 4 different teams there that had huge effects. And the reason I'm waiting, I want to see if Florida win the Cup. Because obviously then I can say this was the game that changed the NHL. You know, like we've got a generational talent going to Chicago because they managed to secure their seeding in the draft order, whatever that was at the time. And they get a generational player.
Obviously, there was lots of... We haven't really spoke about it on this, but I know you're probably more dialed in than most when it comes to what's relevant in the hockey content world. And the way the draft went down, cut to the ad break, I know it's pre-recorded, but everybody is saying it's fixed. Obviously, Taves and Kane have gone out of there. It's pre-made, ready. That Chicago, we're going to, you know, tinfoil hats are out, and Chicago have rigged it, and Gary Bettman's rigged it so that Bedard's going to end up in an original 6 market as opposed to out west. What was your take on that?
Like, I get the argument. I feel like the majority of the argument comes from fans that are upset that their team didn't win, which, don't be a sore loser. Come on. Like, yes, it sucks. Like, the one I remember in particular, obviously, and taking it back to the Rangers, there's a reason for it. So the Rangers, obviously, they won the lottery for Alexei Lafreniere a couple of years ago. Was it 2019, I think? And obviously everyone's saying like there was a particular controversy with like one of the balls hit the other ball, and then the ball that hit that ball ended up being the one that was picked, and it was the Rangers. It should have been that other ball instead. The Rangers, since the NHL entry draft began, had not had a first overall draft pick. Like shut up, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but like you can sit there and be like, now Edmonton winning a bunch of them in a row, now we've got an argument here. It's rigged. They seem to win first overall every year.
And then signing Yakupov, good move.
Well, yeah, exactly. It didn't exactly work out well for them, but
solid dumpster fire on the signing right there.
I just think like, I get it, but I don't feel like it's in the NHL's. With all this sports betting coming in, the NHL don't want a product that's rigged, because then it will scare off all the bettors if they already know what's going to happen.
Fair point.
I don't know. Unless you're the guy that knows what's going to happen, then I imagine you're going to make a couple of quid into the bargain.
True. But at the same time, the betting companies make all their money off the people that bet wrong. So
yeah, of course they do. Before we let you go, obviously, it'd be remiss if we didn't talk about UK hockey a little bit.
Sure.
What's your kind of in-game, out-of-game routine? You said when you touched on off air that you haven't really been to a game in the UK for a while, but have you been following what's going on? Maybe catching some games on Viaplay or whatever?
No, not a single one. I will be perfectly honest. I'm disappointed with like the Elite League. Like UK hockey as a whole, I think like the NIHL down are doing some pretty solid things. There's a ways to go still, but I think they're moving in the right direction, right? Yeah. I feel like personally the EIHL, in my opinion, I used to be a much bigger fan of it than I am now. Whether it's just a case of I don't have the time to follow it anymore with all the other leagues that I keep up to date with, or because of like the geography of where I am in comparison to their leagues, but I don't know. I feel like they're doing everything they can to not grow the sport, and until they show an interest in wanting to bring us a product that we enjoy, I'm not going to give them my time. You know, like I get that it's like there's that age-old argument. It's not a developmental league, sure, but like the guys that you're bringing in aren't NHL players. Like, let's pump the brakes on that. You're not getting a Calder Cup champion on an EIHL team, because if they're not wanted anymore in the AHL, they're going to Sweden, to Russia, to Switzerland. Like I get that you want the overall quality to come up. The EIHL is a league where it needs its homegrown players to be that driving force and complemented by international import players. Because we're relying very heavily on it, or that the league is relying very heavily on import players, you have the problem that we keep bouncing up and down between the world championships. Whereas I think Germany is a prime example. Like the German hockey system over the last like 10, 15 years, They made it to the gold medal game of the World Championships.
Yeah.
Nobody expected them to make it there. You look at the NHL players.
Olympics, was it as well?
Yeah, and the Olympics in 2018 as well. Yeah, they've made it to several solid competitions. They've obviously got Stutzler, you've got Draisaitl, and those guys weren't even playing in that game. So you're missing exactly. You're missing like some of your like world beaters. Draisaitl is out of this world as a hockey player.
Yeah, insane.
And you've got like Philip Grubauer as the netminder. Like they could, even if the NHL was taking part, they could ice a solid roster. And even though that they're not, they're still competing with the big hitters. And the reason for that is because they've grown their talent. They know that they can
loads more. They've
exactly.
got loads more coming through.
The DL2, the Oberliga. You've got 3 fucking.
Because they prioritize their home talent and then use foreign star import players to complement that talent. That's what we need to do.
So you're not a fan of the increase in import numbers then?
I think it's so dumb. I think you're just wasting money because like 9 times out of 10, that guy doesn't play up to expectations for half a dozen games. The fans get upset. You kick him out anyway. So you end up paying him for half a dozen's worth of games that you're not happy with. Why not grow a local player who doesn't have to uproot his entire life in order to come there for 6 weeks? You know?
Yeah. What else have you got to say in the Elite League? Anything that you've got to get off
They need to figure out this whole like streaming stuff. I'm sorry, but like not having a centralized website where you can pay a certain fee to watch all the games every weekend or something. That's the dumbest thing. Like it's 2023. Like we're in a position now where people will just pirate the games. If like nobody's going to buy £15 games every single week. And this argument that like, oh, but it will stop people from going to the arena. Have you ever watched a hockey game? If the option is I go to see it live or I watch it, everyone will pick I'll go to see it live in a heartbeat.
100%.
Every single hockey fan will pick in person. I would if I was close to the rink. I wouldn't watch like if I was near Madison Square Garden every week. I wouldn't sit there watching it on MSG. I'd go to the bloody place, you know.
Yeah.
But like the whole point of the stream is for the people that can't make it to the arena. The whole point of that extra revenue is for people that, like me, have to travel 3.5 hours in order to get to a Sheffield Steelers Nottingham Panthers game. I can't make that commitment every single week. So you put on this stream, and yeah, like Viaplay sounded like it was somewhat going in the right direction, but it's the same with this Viaplay, Premier Sports, all this stuff. They just need EIHL TV. Just make a website, have it so that every feed is available on there for a certain fee each season.
That's also a great option going forwards with recognition of the league as well and the British players. You've then got a package where scouts from all across the world have access to the top league in the UK and say, right, let's keep our eye on this kid here.
Absolutely.
We don't have anything except the individual streams. So yeah, I like what you're saying there.
Like, and people have mentioned that, like, on social media, because I will be honest, the one thing I love about the Elite League and British hockey fans is the banter on social media. I love it. Like, they are top notch for it. I love all these, like, little spats that go on online. I'm never involved in any of them, but I sit there, I soak it all up. It's just so entertaining. Observer. Yeah, it's so entertaining to watch. It's more entertaining than the league itself, in my opinion. But that's another point. But
what about the argument that when I spoke to David Sims on here? His argument was, well, evidently the clubs are making a lot more from the fucking streams than I thought they were. I was like, you know, let's say 400 fans pay 15 quid. It's just a pretty solid turnover.
Sure.
Timsy was like, no.
Yeah.
Way up. If that's way up, then they ain't fucking ever coming back from it.
Yeah, but at the same time,
that's 1,000 fans paying fucking 15 quid. That's 15 grand.
But like at the same time, if the funds from like a streaming service equally distributed, we get more parity across the league because then the Dundees and the Fifes can compete with the Belfasts and the Sheffields, and also. Yes, you get this money from like obviously these huge like streaming deals and everything, but what about like big sponsorships league wide from companies and ad revenue that comes in from that? That's also
mate.
Yeah,
like, I'm all for it.
No, I like playing devil's advocate, absolutely, but like what would be better? A short term, we get this much money a season in these £15, £10, however much they are, games, or we get a deal with, you know, like the official food of the EIHL, the official car of the EIHL, like all of this stuff, you know, that's so important. Like, you look at, I'm not a big fan of like the huge influx of like sports gambling stuff. Like, the last couple of years, I've done a couple of like gambling, like sponsored videos, but recently I've kind of been like, I don't really want to touch that anymore. I'm not, like, the vibe is really off. I don't really like that whole, you know, because it's being shoved down your throat every single time you watch a sports game at the moment. It seems to be everywhere, and it's very predatory. But like at the same time, like, the NHL, not the best for advertising. They're not exactly good at like advertising their own product, but they make a lot of money.
Yeah, they do.
I think Gary Bettman came out recently, said they've made over $6 billion because they innovate, they find companies that want to sponsor their product. The EIHL, if they build this, the problem is it's this team and this organization versus this organization. It needs to be more cohesive. There needs to be more of a sense of, we are an entire league, let's make this work for everyone. But the problem is that hurts the bottom line. So some teams might not necessarily want to do that. But my argument would be, it hurts the bottom line in the short term, but in the long term, you could see huge improvement in the amount of money you make, and paying £15 for a stream would be the least of your worries. You could be getting thousands, tens of thousands a season just to wear a certain logo on your pant leg, you know? Like, you've got, I think they've got to think about the long-term gain as opposed to kind of short-term financial improvement, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think it seems more like a greed thing where we have some clubs like Sheffield, huge club. They could probably sell 1,000 streams or whatever it is, and then you've got Fife that will probably sell 50 streams. I think there's a bit of a thing between balance and having an arena, and it's just I don't know where to start on that. It's a video in itself, but there seems to be the problem there. No one wants to build into the same pot. But we're being told that they are wanting to be in the same pot. Well, there's no excuse for that.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I won't believe it until I see it.
Well, I was going to say, you got to see it actually play out before you can really believe anything that gets said around here.
Yeah.
Boys, I have to go to work, so unfortunately we're going to have to wrap this right here. But this has been fun. It's actually been fun to talk about some NHLs, talk about some YouTube content. We haven't got to do that for a while, so appreciate your time, guys and girls.
Thank you.
Please, so many of you are returning viewers. You're not subscribed. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like this. Make sure you comment. Go check out Odd Man Rush on YouTube, all the social medias, and we will see you again for another episode very, very soon. Peace.